What is up, beautiful people? This is Christian from the Successful Spiritualpreneur Podcast, and today I'm very excited to have Candice Lazar on the podcast. And she's the founder of 44 Breathwork, a science-backed, no-nonsense approach to feeling better fast using the power of breath. She's also certified as a menopause coach, life coach, Reiki Level 2 practitioner, and a licensed heart-centered facilitator. Today, Candice helps business owners and high achievers using breath work as a practical tool for stress relief, energy, sleep, and clarity. Her message is quite simple. If you can breathe, you can do this. Welcome to the show, Candice.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Love it. Well, before we start, I would like for us to take a breath.
Works for me.
Just so simple. It works every time. Every time. So how
The
did you
only thing you're all doing, no matter what.
Yeah. How did you discover breathwork?
The short answer is I was sick in bed. I went on vacation. I flew halfway around the world on this trip, and as soon as I landed, I got sick. And I spent half that trip in bed trying to do a lot of meditations to help myself feel better. I had medicine as well, which I took, but it takes time to kick in. So I'm just laying there and I'm like, God, what can I do? And I was trying a lot of different meditations, and I wasn't really doing it for me, except for this one meditation that had a breathwork component. I just kept coming back to this one meditation with the breathwork aspect, and I really liked that. And I thought, well, why do I like this so much? I like researching, I like learning things. So once I started feeling better, and when I got home from that trip, I decided to start researching the breath a little bit. And I was just amazed at how impactful how you breathe can be in your life. And I thought, I need to start telling people about this. More people need to know. So that's how I ended up doing that.
I love that. That's amazing. Yeah, I think breathwork is one of the most powerful techniques, modalities that's out there, and I think especially for people who've never done it, it's just so effective because you feel it so like immediately. It's not like meditation where you're just like, I've tried 20 minutes or tried 30 minutes, but it's like nothing. With breathwork, it's like you're not gonna not feel something. So that's
That's
beautiful.
that's exactly right. That's really my whole that's my platform right there. You just said it for me, so thank you. And there is a lot of that. With breath work, you can do some of these longer term. You can go really deep. You can get deeply into your subconscious. It can be a lengthy. There's breath work that you can do for hours, but what I really teach my clients a lot of the time is, let me give you a band-aid, right? Instead of having like this massive healing experience all the time, here's a little breathwork band-aid. Take this band-aid when you're sitting in traffic and you're feeling stressed out. Take this band-aid after lunch when you're feeling a little sluggish and tired and you want some more energy. I'm like using small hits of breathwork in different ways just in your everyday life. And you do start to notice that it makes a big difference. Don't get me like, more is more, but little bits are a lot.
Yeah.
And it really, I think, can help change your overall baseline.
Yeah, I really love that. And, nowadays, these big breakthrough things are so popular, like ayahuasca and plant medicine and things like that. And while these are all wonderful modalities, like a lot of times people are not ready for that upgrade. You know what I mean? It's like it really is a deep, very, very, very deep work in your life or in your being. And sometimes people are not ready for that, right? And so they can't handle that energy, or they make stupid decisions afterwards in a way that kind of like, it's very interesting. So yeah, I think breathwork is a great modality because again, it's like just like a little bit. It's like it's just just like the breath. It's very just like little by little.
Right. Yeah.
That's wonderful. And tell me a little bit more about the number 44. What's the significance there? Because obviously 44 breathwork, that's your brand name.
Yes. So, a lot of breathwork coaches, businesses, etc., they have a very evocative feel to the name of them. And when I was exploring getting certified, a lot of them have very specific feel to the words. There are companies like Pause or Revelation or Soma. And these words to me all have certain vibes. They, when you hear those words with the word breathwork afterwards, you're going to have a very specific sense of what they are offering. When I started my business, I did not necessarily know that I wanted to, again, I wanted something that was going to be a little bit more flexible, a little bit more every day. So I didn't know that I wanted a word that was going to have such a specific meaning attached to it. So I chose 44, and in my mind, I was picturing, in a way, how they say like Orange Theory, right? People know what Orange Theory is, even though orange doesn't really have anything to do with it. It's like 44 is the thing that, eventually you could get it to be its own thing enough that people would recognize. I chose 44 for a few different reasons. I started my business when I was 44 years old, and I want people to know that it's okay to start a business later in life. And I love box breathing. I don't know if you're familiar with it. I do know. I'm sure you're familiar with box breathing, but in case someone is not, box breathing is 4 counts of 4. So what you do there is you inhale for 4 counts, you hold for 4 counts, you exhale for 4 counts, and you hold for 4 counts. And I really love that technique. I wouldn't say it's my absolute favorite, but I really love that technique and that fit as well. So I decided to go with 44 breathwork so that it seemed like those few things just dovetailed nicely, and especially, again, not having a specific meaning attached to it, that people can bring their own. I should say that they not that they can bring their own, that they're not really going to necessarily bring their own preconceived notions to it based on.
Yeah. Beautiful. And do you know, I'm not sure if you're into that kind of stuff, but like, do you know what the angel number meaning is of 44? Have you ever looked that up?
Yeah, angel nut. Yeah, and I mentioned that on my website as well, actually, too. That's right. And this is the Spiritualpreneur Cast, so definitely you guys are into angel numbers. So it's interesting because I've seen some interpretations that say 44 is transformation, and then I've seen other interpretations that say no, it's a biblical number and it means stability. And in some ways, those are somewhat oppositional. However, I think the breath can be a source of both. I think your breath can be a major source of transformation. And I think that when you want stability, that you can always come back to your breath. So it fits really
Yeah.
well both ways there as well.
Yeah, I love that. Especially, I think, in relation to the breath, the breath can be so powerful if we let it be. But usually we just don't, because it's run by our subconscious mind, which we never utilize the breath for really what it could be every minute or hour, so it's very interesting. So breath to us is like it's a very, stable, always the same kind of thing, right? But it can be super powerful. Like I've done breathwork sessions that were 40 minutes, and I was like on the floor, moving my
Right.
limbs. I was like, most people don't get there. But yeah, breath is so powerful, so I think it's a perfect number. I love it. um, and I love that you started your business a little later in life. um, Tell us, because I think there's a lot of change coming down the pipeline with AI and things like that. Like, what advice? Like, I think a lot of people now are even looking for like, how can I set myself up, um, or knowing that their job in, I don't know, 5 years won't be around anymore. Like, what advice do you have for people? Like, I don't know, like in that situation. Let's say they've been employed for, let's say, 20 years, and they're looking to start something. Like, where do they start?
Gosh. Well, if you are starting absolutely from scratch, then I would say it's easiest to start with the skills you already have. So think about, what can you do with skills you already have? What would make sense based on what you've already been doing? Start there, right? And then you can start shifting over. But it just, in terms of lowest friction, right? Start with what you know. So if you wanted to do something on your own, then I would say it's like sit down and think about, okay, this is my profession. What do people want to know about my profession? Start thinking about questions people have. Start doing some research, right? Try to get into the minds of the people that you'd be working with. But it's tough too. There's a balancing act. You need to do some research, and you need to get started. You can't wait too long. You've got to get moving.
Yeah.
So especially with, you mentioned AI, use AI, make use of AI. It is a tool that's out there for you. It is something that you can choose to feel threatened by, but it is also something that you can choose to let you be helpful in whatever you want to do. So if you want to start a new business, then I would absolutely start consulting with AI and telling it, my background, my story, and what I want. Help me out. Let's get started. Jam with me, AI. Get me going here. Um, that's
Yeah.
probably how I would start, brand new from scratch if I had no idea what I was doing.
Very cool. And what would you like from your experience? Because you've built businesses around breathwork with 44 breathwork and a breath well taken. Like, what was your journey like? Tell us a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey of like, oh, the beginning it was like this and then it got like that. Like, what's your like from practitioner to business owner? What's your journey? Any open?
So I'm a lawyer. I was working as a lawyer, and I once found a banner ad about learning to write, learning copywriting. And well, even before I was a lawyer, I should say, a long, long time ago, I worked in marketing, in advertising production and post production. So I would have advertising agencies would come to the business that I worked at, and we would work with them to create video, to do their graphics, their social media, all that stuff. At the time, it was a lot more TV commercials. Now it would be a lot more, social campaigns and whatnot that they do. But so I worked in that field. I really enjoyed it. I moved and I went to law school when I moved, for a few reasons. I overall saw it kind of as a good as a good business degree. I saw it as a way to meet people. A lot of people in my family became lawyers and went to law school later in life. So I thought, you know what, this is going to be useful for you. Go do this. Then when I was in law school, I thought, you're learning to practice law. You should do that. What you're working with here, go see it if you like it, since you're learning this. So I went to practice law for a bit, and I really it wasn't my favorite thing. So I was already looking for other opportunities, and I had seen this banner ad about learning copywriting. And having enjoyed that marketing job, I did all of our internal marketing at that company. So I thought, I like this. This is a great fit. I didn't know I could be a copywriter without having an advertising degree. So wow, I'm going to go learn this. So I immediately, I had been trying to think about, and I just said a minute ago, right? Like if you're starting from scratch, work with something that you already know. I was looking at doing kind of a legal adjacent based business, kind of a licensing type of a thing. And I was starting to explore that. But then I discovered copywriting, and I thought, oh, I really love that. Go do this. This is what you're going to do instead. So I got further and further into copywriting. I eventually left my job as a lawyer, and I eventually joined someone's team as a copywriter, kind of as a permalancer. So I was very much embedded in his team, but I still had a lot of freedom and a lot of flexibility outside of there, which was really great. So writing more copy for different types of clients, but I really was with this one client very much. I really liked his stuff. He helped entrepreneurs launch their products into the world. So I really believe in his cause. I believed in him. And I was on his team for 5 years. I went from writing copy to running that team. And then I went on that vacation where I got very sick, and I had already been a little bit stressed heading into that trip, but that trip was a little bit of an epiphany for me. And I thought, okay, you're definitely stressed. You need to think about making some changes. And then I started exploring breath work, and I realized, oh my gosh, you've been here for 5 years. 5 years is a long time to be in one place. And maybe it's time to try something new. So I left that company, and I knew I was going to be starting my breathwork certification, but I had a little bit of time before then. So I also started doing a marketing business before then. So I also work with clients to help them launch. I do kind of launch planning VIP days. So where I get together with people for just a day and help them make sure they've got everything ready for their launch. They've got their offer mapped out. They know there's no questions left, right? They have all the moving parts. They know overall what the messaging arc is going to be, what each email is going to say, what the page is going to look like, all that stuff. So I had started doing that with them because I had time before my breathwork training. Then I had my breathwork training, and now it's kind of all just one big. I do much more breathwork now than I do the marketing, because that's kind of It seems like it's hard to give equal attention to two things, right? One is going to always overtake the other, and breathwork has kind of overtaken the other. But that's how I got here. Somewhat convoluted, for sure. So.
Yeah. But that's beautiful. I think, a lot of people these days are, all humans are just so multifaceted, whether we know it or not, right? And once we find out that we are, we're just like, well, I don't only want to do one thing, right? Because it's fun to do both. It's just maybe you do this 70% of your time and the other thing 30% of your time, right? So sounds like that's what you found throughout life. And you know currently, like, what do you think, with all your experience and the different kind of like tapestries of industries that you've seen, like, what do you think the world needs now, whether that is in a business sense or in a personal, like, society sense? What do you think the world needs more of?
Empathy. I mean, that's the number one thing, I think. I think, period, right now, there is a lot of myopia, a lot of selfishness. It's very pervasive. Uh, yes. I mean, when you said, like, what does the world need more? That is literally the first thing that popped into my head was empathy. So we need more of that. And peace as well. Definitely need more of that. In a business sense, what does the world need more of? It's tough. I guess I would say the world needs more. If you think about something like the music industry, it's become so fragmented over time, right? Things we used to see in the music industry, the popularity level of an artist at the time, like Michael Jackson or like Nirvana. Aside from very few artists right now, you don't see artists at that level anymore. You don't see very many, like a Taylor Swift level person, because audiences are so fragmented, right? There are so many platforms and so many different ways for you to share your thing and places for you to put it out and to find your people, that we don't need these mass things. We don't need huge companies and huge conglomerates. So I would say that the world needs more individuality and creativity. But I mean that at a true level, like creativity. You see people come out. There are trends, and a lot of the time, I'm trying to think of a good example. So one trend in business right now is teaching people to create their own bot army, right? And I shouldn't say army, like bot team, right? Create your own bot team. You can get rid of your real human team, and you can just have a bot for this and a bot for that, and a bot for the other thing, and it runs your whole business. And so that's a big trend right now. And you see a lot of different people doing that. And that's fine. It's very cool. But make sure that you're putting your own spin on it. Like, make sure that if you're going to do that, it really is your own version of it, and that you're offering something different and cool about it. Whether it's a bonus that's different, whether it's your framework that's different, whether it's something. So, the world there's absolutely room for more of that, but make sure that you're really bringing your own uniqueness to it. That's what the business world needs.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I was going to say, in the business world, like, the answer that came to me was the world needs more of you. So it's funny that you say that you said that as well, because I think when you bring more of you into the business, right, that automatically means more authenticity, more passion, more of your interest. What do you really want to launch? Like, what product do you want to sell? A sleeping pillow, or do you want to sell, I don't know, herbal tea because you really love herbal tea? So there's so many things that you can do. And I think if you are about to start a business, or if you're thinking about to start a business, then start one that is about you in one way or another. Not completely, but in a tangent way, right? So, yeah.
And it's just easier to not resist that. I spent several years, the first few years. I started copywriting about a decade ago, And I really tried to like hide the fact that I was a lawyer. I did not talk about, I did not sign things with, Esquire afterwards, any of that. It really made things a lot harder for myself than I needed to. And I just want to tell people now, like, no, you don't have to stay in what you're doing if you're not happy with it, but start with what, it's just easier that way. And it's going to be a lot more efficient for you to do that.
Yeah.
I wish I had leaned into that more.
Yeah. And people, yeah, I guess, you did, obviously you did it for a reason, right? You don't want to confuse people like, oh, she's not this, but at the end of the day, I think a lot of people resonate with somebody who wears multiple hats, because a lot of people do as
Yeah,
well. Um, you know,
totally.
not only at home, but also in a professional sense. So tell us a little bit about your breathwork practice. What would you recommend for someone to do morning, evening, how long, which practice or practices that you can recommend for people to try? What are your go-tos?
So I tend to really do like a lot of, like I think I mentioned earlier, kind of a morning and a midday and an after work and then an evening. And then I might do other breath work, little bits throughout the day, just kind of as I feel like it. In the morning, if you want to do something that's energizing, the key to your breath really is the length of your inhale compared to the length of your exhale. That is that's what's gonna control how you feel. So in the morning, if you want a little bit of energy, then you want a slightly longer inhale and a shorter exhale, or you want a fuller inhale, like a more energetic, bringing more air in, right? So one thing that is good for, especially if you're a beginner, I would say you don't want to get too crazy with this because you could get a little bit lightheaded, but just 20 full deep breaths. And when I say full deep breaths, a lot of people keep their breath way up here in their chest. You want to bring your breath down way into your belly. Think about it. And for some people, you've got to focus. Think for a minute and feel that expansion because they're really used to keeping their breath so high. But I would say if you could take 20 kind of, quick full breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth, kind of, it feels a little bit of like huffing and puffing, but not where you're controlling it. That's the key. Maintain control here. And you're doing 20. And if you feel lightheaded before then, then stop. That's one that I would do for a starter. I wouldn't get too long into doing holds that much if I was just starting. That is also an energizing technique. Like that's also good for after lunch too, right? Because you're digesting. You've got a lot of blood that's going all into your stomach. It's leaving your brain. You're getting fuzzy. You're getting tired. So that's good for that as well. Now, for a more downshifting type of a breath, if you're trying to calm yourself, then you want to have probably a longer exhale than inhale. So one thing that I like to do often is I will just double the length of my inhale. So I very often do a 4-count inhale, and then I'll do an 8-count exhale. Sometimes I'll do a 3 and a 6. There are also a lot of breaths that are kind of more, equal in pattern, making sure that things are equal in length, like we talked about with box breathing. Or there's something called resonant breathing, which is 5-second inhale, 5-second exhale. That's I would say resonant breathing is the thing I do the most throughout the day. Like midday, if I get up from my desk to go refresh my water or something, if I think of it on my way there, I'll start doing some resonant breathing. That's kind of my usual go-to throughout the day. And then I would say in bed at night, when I get in bed, I like to do 10 really full, slow belly breaths. Once I'm laying down, I put a hand on my belly, a hand on my chest, and I just go so slowly. Breathe in really slow, let it fill. Breathe out really, really slow as possible. And it just turns into this kind of gluey, almost kind of meditation thing as I'm trying to fall asleep.
I love that. And what are other practices or habits that you would say that keep you in alignment, in addition to your breath?
I'm a big fan of working out. I think physical activity is really important. So I work out usually 4 to 5 days a week. I've gotten in a habit, and this was not, I didn't intend to do this, but it's stuck and I really like it, is when I get up from my desk, when I come back to my desk, I will do a set of 10 push-ups, and I try to do that 10 times a day. So I end up with 10 sets of 10 throughout the day. It's not, it's kind of like the Band-Aids, right? It's not super disruptive to your day, but it gives you a little bit of movement, little burst of energy, changes things up for a second. And then by the end of the day, you did 100 push-ups that you wouldn't have done otherwise.
Yeah.
So
Love that. That's great. I like these little like
yeah,
add-ins to life, like for me, one thing I always do is like I sit down with tea when I sit down for a longer work session just because it's like something that accompanies me, that keeps me going. There's some, taste, some like, experience there for me that just like, oh, this is so nice. How cozy I can sit down, do my work here with my computer. um yeah, so these
yeah.
little things, I think that's also for me where it's like, because those are the ones that are actually gonna become a habit eventually, so that's why I think those are just the most accessible and approachable ones. I love that you share those. um
Agreed. Yeah, I don't know if you know the Tiny Habits framework from Dr. BJ Fogg.
mm,
Dr. Fogg is the one who James Clear, everyone knows who James Clear is for Atomic Habits. James Clear learned from Dr. Fogg. And so Dr. Fogg's book, Tiny Habits, it's older than Atomic Habits. Same type of thing. It's the micro things, it's the small steps, it's, getting those little things solidified as the habits that are really, um, what's that cliche? Big doors swing on small hinges, right? It really is small things that can make a big difference and that you're going to want to stick with because it's small enough to be able to do. So.
mm. Yeah, I love that. So tell us a little bit about your current offerings. Like, what type of products or services do you offer, and yeah, how or why? Just a little bit or a little overview.
Sure. Well, as I mentioned, kind of my other business, I've got those VIP planning days, but I'm actually trying to think about what would it look like to have a breathwork, VIP day. What does that look like? So that's something that I'm mulling over. But things I actually have in my business right now, my main thing that I usually promote is a membership. It's kind of like an a la carte subscription in a way. It's you log in and it's available on all mobile, tablet, whatever, PC, and it's got audios, videos, PDFs, all different types of breathing techniques and other nervous system trainings and tools. So that's like my main thing, and then it's got for people to be able to go in and use when they want, kind of at will. How much time do you have? If you only have a minute, here's a short one. If you have an hour, here's a long breathwork journey, like you talked about doing at that event and getting kind of, like, woo, all crazy. But there's also a monthly coaching component with that, so people can have some interaction and they can get some help from me, some guidance as far as breathwork or other stuff as well. So that's really my main thing that I promote day to day. I also have an 8 week coaching program, like a live coaching program that I run a couple times during the year. And that's also a kind of a nervous system support toolbox, very much based on breath work, but a few other things as well, things that I personally have discovered and found really helpful and interesting. And so I want to share them with my audience. So we do stuff like we talk about polyvagal theory and energy mapping and internal family systems and things like that. So yeah, that's how I can really also get to share and teach personally. And then I've got a few other things in the works too. I've got some smaller little packages, like packages of things from my membership that you can buy, a few recordings here and there, a few things that I'm coming out with for Black Friday, and then probably into next year. And I'm thinking about doing more live stuff. Is it going to be I've taught a live class in the past. That's not the same as the coaching program. Do I do that? Do I do more of a one-to-one? I'm not sure what it's going to look like, but something else there, because I know that people want different levels of support. And and I know that people want to invest different levels of time and different levels of money. And I want to be able to meet people where they're at and have something for them, regardless of where they're at. So.
Beautiful. And where can people find all that? What's the best way to find out about that?
Probably through my website, 44breathwork.com. And on my website, you can sign up. There's a couple of red buttons. There's a big red button in the upper right corner, and there's a red button in the center of the screen. And you can sign up through those buttons to get 5 of my favorite breathing techniques that can help you change how you feel in less than 5 minutes. Again, more breathwork band-aids, but short, impactful, easy to do. So you can sign up there, and then you'd be on my list, and you'd be staying in my world and hearing from me pretty regularly.
Beautiful. I love that. And yeah, we're coming towards the end of the podcast, but I'd love to ask you a couple more questions. So, in
Yeah.
terms of your, entrepreneurial journey, who or what inspires you the most currently?
Uh, there are a few coaches whose stuff I open more often than not. Well, and having said that, there's actually someone whose emails I don't open as much anymore. But so there's a coach I used to follow a lot who was kind of like a little bit of like a business rebel coach. And it seems like over the past couple of years, she seems to have found religion. She seems to have turned a bit more Christian. And so I do not follow her stuff anymore because it's not for me. However, having watched that shift and watching her stay true to herself and making that shift, it was neat to see. There's a couple other coaches I follow. There's one person I follow who I had only really discovered about a year ago, and I like her stuff, and I like her level of spirituality. It's definitely there in her business, but still very practical, and it feels original. But she's about to close down her business. She's like, you know what? Nothing is wrong. It just feels complete. I'm ready to move on. I want to talk about other stuff. I want to spend my money in different ways. And so it's kind of sad for those of us that follow her, but also really inspiring. So that's a good example. So I guess I would say seeing people who are making shifts and staying true to themselves while they're doing it is something I find really inspiring.
Hmm.
And I was also talking with some friends the other day. I was telling them how my husband has a friend who discovered that a kid in his fraternity from the university that he graduated from like decades ago is one of the winners of like this massive lottery jackpot that just was drawn a few weeks ago. Like this kid is suddenly like he's probably already withdrawn from school. He's not. There's no need for him to go to college anymore, right? Like he's got like 9-figure wealth. And so I was talking with my friends, and we're like, God, what would you do if you just had like 9-figure wealth like that overnight? And just to imagine some of the things that you would do, and starting to think about, do I actually need 9-figure wealth to do that? Like I probably can start doing some of those things now, right? And taking some of these steps now, right? So even just letting things like that conversation, I never really expected it to turn out to be inspiring for us, but I think it kind of was. So I don't know. It's everywhere. Sometimes in places you don't expect it to be. So.
Yeah, I love that. Beautiful. Well, yeah, I'd love to ask you one more question and
Mhm.
then, close out the podcast. So, just, the last part of the podcast, I always like to give it over to the guest of the show and just ask them what are their, future aspirations, future goals? Like, where do you see yourself, your brand going and evolving? What are you looking to call in?
I think I will probably end up kind of combining my two businesses more, would be my guess. I'm especially finding myself interested in thinking about breathwork for business. Right? What does that look like? How do we talk about breathwork for your launch? Breathwork for other things. Breathwork as far as decision making before you do something financial or a hiring decision or whatever. So I keep thinking about that, and I wouldn't be surprised to see myself do something with that breathwork for launches or breathwork for lawyers. I can imagine going that way, but I don't exactly know what it looks like. Um, yeah, that's probably as specific as I can get right now. I mean, I have others. I have goals as far as like I would like to write a book, for example, at some point. But I would be getting this stuff figured out before I would write the book. Those are things that are later, things that are immediate. I almost view them as not goals, but it's like, yes, I'm starting that campaign soon, so it's not a goal. So yeah, I would say vision overall is probably to combine business and breathwork.
Beautiful. Well, really wish you lots of fun on that journey. It's been an honor to have you on. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your heart with us on the podcast. Anything else you would like to leave the audience with?
Just if there's one thing you're always doing, it's breathing. So just think about it. If you even just thinking about your breathing, paying attention to your breathing, noticing, feeling the air coming in your nose, thinking about the fact that you're letting it back out, noticing your breathing is going to start changing your life. It really can. So
I love it. Thank you so much, Candice. Really
thank
appreciate
you.
you on.
I'm glad to be here.